Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.
Welcome to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate and glad to be here with you on this evening edition of Bayou Time. Now joining us via Zoom from Baton Rouge is State Representative Beryl Amity. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, sir. It's always a pleasure to be here.
All right. I know in this legislative session they have a few bills, some that are stirring a little bit of controversy regarding public records law. Specifically, I believe Senate Bill 482 is one that seems to, do a lot of, or would shield a lot of records from public view. It's pretty broadly written. Can you explain a little bit about what's going on?
Sure. I have not personally had the opportunity to vote on Senate Bill 482 because it's still on the Senate side right now. So I took a moment just to glance at the bill and see what I see. And it seems to be mostly an attempt to shield the governor's schedule from being made public, especially not only his schedule, but his family members' schedules. And I believe that that would be based on security. And I don't know that anybody would really have a problem with that part of the bill. There are other provisions in the bill, but the committee added some amendments, and it seems that, the deliberative process privilege shall not be invoked by a public body as a means to deliberate through any meeting of a quorum of the public body or otherwise violate the provisions of the open meetings law. So I'm not sure what the controversy will be about that bill.
Okay.
I don't know when I will get to hear more about it. Certainly not until it comes over to the House side, unless I go back and review committee discussions by video.
Okay. And
I'll see how the Senate handles it.
I see it. I believe they had some provision in there. It might have been taken out, but I'm not sure. It was about records reflecting deliberations or recommendations concerning, any governmental decisions. Is that still in there as far as you know? Because
as far as I know, that's still in there, and I need a better understanding of what it means and what they're trying to do, because let me just say that currently in the House, for example, as legislators, when we're working on drafting bills, that is not a matter of public record.
Mhm.
We have to be able to sit and discuss with staff what we want in a bill. We have to be able to communicate with other members about what we can agree to go into a bill. So drafting of bills and putting together amendments and all, that's not really part of the public record. Now, deliberative means debate and discussion. So if we are actively debating in a situation where this is going to lead to a vote, well, then that is definitely part of the public process. And in the legislature, all of our committee hearings, all of our floor debates, those are all open to the public. Those are recorded not only on paper, but by video. So you can access all that either live or after the fact from the legislative website. So I'm really not sure what the bill is attempting to do related to the deliberative process. So I will have to get back with you whenever I see the bill as it comes over to the House.
Yeah, certainly, because I think it extends more just past legislature to any governmental body. So I think you can interpret it to where it's just, anytime two government employees are talking, it leads to the door to where they can just exempt basically every record, I would think, if you, but I know you haven't had time to look at it because it's still on the Senate side, but.
Well, I did have one thought though, as you're talking about departments and agencies, depending on what types of bills we're trying to draft, we sometimes as legislators speak with people from departments and agencies.
Sure.
I know that this session alone, several of the bills that I'm carrying have to do with education. I've had many meetings, conversations with people from the Department of Education and Bessie. And perhaps the bill is expanding the same rules that we have in the legislature for speaking with staff and speaking with our fellow members. Perhaps the bill is trying to extend that to when we speak to people from other departments and agencies. I'm not sure, but that's one possibility.
Okay. And then we also have House Bill 461. Now, this is dealing with public records and regarding to certain economic development negotiations. Can you talk a little bit about that one and what that one's trying to do?
Yes, and House Bill 461 is a bill that has already passed through the House, and it's on its way to the Senate. It's probably waiting to be scheduled in a committee. And we saw that one, and that is one that I voted against. And it involves local economic development agencies and the process by which they try to create contracts and draw business into the area. And I do understand that there must be some level of confidentiality as they're doing negotiations with business and industry. But my concern with the bill was that it provides for a lengthy period of confidentiality that, in my opinion, is way too long. It's too extreme. The confidentiality can go as long as 24 months. And I just feel that that's not acceptable to me. 24 months. So that was the reason that I personally voted against the bill.
Okay.
It did pass, though.
It did pass, so it's up to the Senate, and we'll see where it happens there. And then I'm not sure which way the governor stands on it. He ultimately has to sign it or let enough time pass if it does pass through the Senate. I know that there's a lot other bills and things going on through this legislative session, but we do have to take a break. But when we come back, we'll try to talk an overview of where the legislature is and budget and so forth. So stay tuned. We'll be back with more right here on Bayou Time.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by South Louisiana Bank. It's better when we bank together. Waits and Downer, attorneys at law. Terrebonne Ford, built Ford tough.
Welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and we're visiting with State Representative Beryl Amity, who's in Baton Rouge during the legislative session. Before we left off, we're talking about some public records laws, but I think we covered those well. But I know there's a lot more going on in the legislature. One of the big things, of course, is always the budget. Can you give us an overview of some of the things that are happening right now?
Oh, sure. Let's see. Right now we're in week 7, which means we are halfway through more than halfway through a 12-week legislative session. The budget, of course, starts when the governor proposes the budget, and then the House handles it first, and we send it over to the Senate. So this week we are handling the budget on the House floor, and the budget has many components. We have House Bill 1, which is the main state general fund. It's the appropriations bill. Basically, this is the plan of how we're going to spend the money that we do have. Then there's House Bill 2, which is the bill that contains capital outlay projects, and that would be roads and bridges and building maintenance and things like that. And there are many other bills that complete the budget. Another one that you might have seen in headlines is a bill for the judiciary, with the Supreme Court justices asking for an increase, basically raises. And so we've had a lot of discussion about that. Another part of the budget is the MFP, which stands for Minimum Foundation Program. This is the part of the budget that funds the bulk of what we think of as education, K-12 education. So this is where the classroom money is. This is where teacher salaries sit. There's retirement funding in there. So the MFP is very important. And so far, the House committees have passed the MFP, and it'll be on the House floor this week. Now, just in the past 24 hours, my office has received over 400 emails because the teacher raises are not currently in the MFP in the form of anything permanent. For this year's budget, they're still being proposed as a stipend or what some people might think of as a bonus. So it's considered a one-time pay. And so people are not happy because we're still waiting for teacher salary increases to be made permanent so that we don't have to wonder about them each year. So that's where we are with the budget at the moment.
Okay, and so for the teachers, it's not necessarily a cut, but it's just not, the increases aren't just made permanent, is what you're saying.
Correct. There's still an increase, but it's you could say it's temporary until we make it permanent by putting it into the MFP. We have to renew it each year, and so that's what all the fuss is about right now.
Okay, and for the overall, budget bill, is that something that's usually the last thing that's passed towards the end, or is that something that negotiations will just keep on going?
Well, I used to describe it this way. I used to say the governor proposes the budget, the House fixes it, we send it over to the Senate, they mess it up, and then they send it back and we fight until the end of session. But there's really a whole lot more agreement right now. So that description doesn't quite fit, but the process is the same. The budget is going to move from the House to the Senate after this week, and then they'll make their changes, and then they'll send it back, and we have to figure out which changes we're going to agree on and which ones we won't. So the budget right now the main budget bill is House Bill 1, and the overall budget total right now is actually going to be less than last year's budget. So often we talk about a standstill budget or can we make any budget cuts? Well, the current budget that we're reviewing right now and voting on is actually less than the budget that was approved last year. So this is an effort to work with the projections, the forecast for certain deficits in the budget. As you might remember, that 0.45% sales tax is going to roll off soon, and we're going to have to deal with that. And so this isn't a time for extravagant spending, because if we do that, it'll only make the deficit larger. And at some point, we have to have a balanced budget. And when there's a deficit, we can balance the budget, but a lot of people are not going to like how we have to balance it.
I see. Now, is there any talk, or is that something the governor would be against, the sales tax going back on a renewal or anything, or is that the plan, current understanding is it's just going to go away at this point?
Right now, there's always talk. I mean,
Sure.
Around the Capitol, there's plenty of ideas. So the thought that the 0.45 could be extended or made permanent is certainly an idea. Do I expect that we'll see bills to propose that? Probably. Do I expect them to pass? No. Right now, I don't see any consensus among legislators to extend or continue or even increase that 0.45% sales tax. I think for once, we talk about there's nothing more permanent than a temporary sales tax. And I believe for once we're in a position to go against that general rule and actually let something expire.
Well, that would be nice to see, and it's good to see that the budget is lower. We'll see if it stays that way or not, but I'm sure that'll be the fight that'll take place over the next few weeks or so.
Yes.
Okay, we do need to take another quick break, but when we come back more, we'll talk. I know you have some bills up that we'd like to talk about and see where the current status of them. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be back with more right here on HTV.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Alford and Associates for all of your insurance needs. CIS, Cardiovascular Institute of the South, the highest quality cardiovascular care available. Barker Honda, the Barker family tradition of quality.
Welcome back to Bayou Time. I'm Jacob DeGate, and we're talking with State Representative Beryl Amedee, who's in Baton Rouge right now for the legislative session. Thank you again for joining us very much. We appreciate it. But I know you have some of your own bills that you filed that I would like to ask about. Can you just tell us, an overview of some of those bills and what's the process right now?
Sure. I'll give you some highlights of some of the bills that I've had the most contact about. One of them is a bill that I've nicknamed my Don't Say Free bill. And people are actually joking about that one because sometimes they think it's funny. The Don't Say Free bill is actually a restriction on government agencies, government departments, whenever they let the public know about a certain product or a service that they're offering. If that product has been paid for by taxpayer dollars, the bill would say you cannot use the word free in the commercial, in the promotion, or in the ad. They would have to come up with some other way to explain that it's at no cost. They could say complimentary, or they could say at no cost to you. But what I don't want to see is that they use the word free, because if we're going to have a culture shift away from government dependency, then we need to begin considering what the government offers in a different light. And whenever something's been paid for by taxpayer dollars, it isn't really free. Very often when something's labeled free, people consider that it has no value, and they might not appreciate it, they might waste it. But if something simply says at no cost to you or complimentary, then we're not suggesting that this item has no value. And to me, it's a greater respect for the taxpayers who have paid for these products or services. So it's about a cultural shift that hopefully we can bring about by changing the dialogue. And I think that would be very healthy. So that bill is currently cleared the House, and it's heading over to the Senate right now, and it's going to be heard in committee soon. Another bill that I had brought that is not moving because it has been voted down already is a bill that would require that whenever there's an infant 12 months or younger who dies unexpectedly and without explanation, you might know we call those SIDS deaths or SUIDS. Right now, a coroner is required to do an autopsy, and in the law, there are certain requirements of what the coroner must include in the autopsy, like toxicology reports, for example. So the bill that I brought would simply say that the coroner also has to include the infant's immunization records. And it's easy to come by. We have a LINKS system, LINKS, here in Louisiana. And every entity who has the authority to administer immunizations is supposed to enter those into the LINKS system. And that's not only for children, that's birth to death, any age. And so a coroner would simply have to pull up this computer page, this website, and put in the child's name, click a few buttons, print it out, put it in his coroner's report. And unfortunately, this bill was voted down on the House floor, and I do intend to bring it back next year because I really feel that when the parents are going through the pain of having lost an infant completely unexpectedly and with no explanation, it's just not right to tell them, you can search anywhere you want to for answers except here. You can't search here, don't look here. The inclusion of an immunization record would not mean that that is a cause of death. It just means that now when someone wants to go back and research, if they happen to find a link, if they happen to find that there's a particular immunization perhaps that is common to every one of the babies that recently died, this could help find a bad batch. I mean, there's all kinds of usefulness for this, and I'm disappointed that it did not pass. But as I said, I'll bring it back. And then another bill that is moving is my central bank digital currency bill. It would simply give Louisiana a little extra time should our federal government ever decide to declare a central bank digital currency in this country. It would give legislature here a little more time to decide what the rules are going to be for Louisiana. We wouldn't just be sitting here and blindly having to accept whatever the federal government tells us we have to do concerning central bank digital currency. We would have a slow start here, and we would have the time to write laws to protect our citizens from all of the negative aspects of central bank digital currencies that we've learned from other countries where this already exists. And on a lighter note, I have a bill that is improving the process by which parents can request a foreign language immersion program in their school systems. The process would allow that if the school district denies the request, the parents have an appeal process and they have other options they could pursue. And so that's another bill that's moving along handily. And I really hope that it makes it all the way through the process, because I'd love to see many more French immersion programs.
Well,
So those are a few of my bills.
that would certainly be wonderful. And in regards to the central bank, currency, digital currency, can you just briefly, we got about a minute left, but briefly explain what that would be, what that would be about?
Sure. Central bank digital currency is a form of digital currency. And the problem with it is not that it's so convenient and digital. The problem is the control. When it's a central bank digital currency, that means the government can dictate not only the value of it, but when and how you can spend your own money. So at first, I'm sure there won't be any kinds of strange restrictions, but the potential exists where the government could decide that perhaps Beryl shouldn't be allowed to buy more gas this week because she filled up her tank already. Or perhaps Beryl shouldn't be allowed to, go to buy tickets to this event because this is a political event that this government doesn't agree with, or something along those lines.
I get what you're saying. We're about out of time, but thank you. I understand what you're saying. We always appreciate you coming on and filling us in on what's going on in Baton Rouge. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir. See you soon, Jacob.
All right. Stay tuned for more right here on HTV.
Today's social media segment is brought to you by Terrebonne General Health System. Your health is our legacy. Rouse's, you're either local or you're not. Buick, the craft of modern luxury. St. Martin and Bork, know your rights.